In the heart of the ancient Roman Empire, marble villas glittered under the Mediterranean sun, and senators in flowing togas debated virtue, conquest, and civilization. Yet, beneath that facade of order and discipline, Roman society pulsed with contradictions. An empire that conquered the known world, yet could not govern its own desires. What we might call scandalous today was, to them, a reflection of power, dominance, and control. Infidelity was not a secret sin, but an accepted privilege of rank. Husbands strayed openly, their mistresses welcomed at banquets, and fidelity was rarely demanded from men who commanded legions. For Roman husbands, affairs were not merely tolerated, they were expected. The empire's social hierarchy had long woven lust into the fabric of authority. The respectable wife managed the household, bore heirs, and kept appearances. Beyond those marble thresholds, courtesans, slaves, and lovers filled the private voids of senators, generals, and poets alike. These liaisons were flaunted, not hidden. Love in Rome was public theatre, its players masked by politics. Men's infidelity reflected status, not shame. A man without lovers might even be seen as weak, lacking virility, the very quality Rome prized most. Roman sexuality defied modern boundaries. The empire never spoke in the language of gay or straight. Desire was measured not by gender, but by power. In every encounter, one was dominant and one was submissive. For men, taking the active role meant control. It was Roman, masculine, honorable. To yield was feminine, weak, a mark of inferiority. Thus, even relationships between men followed the same logic of conquest and submission. This was not about love or identity. It was about hierarchy, a reflection of Rome's obsession with order and dominance in every corner of life. Among Rome's elite, mentorship between men became a sanctioned path for ambition. Older statesmen and generals often guided young boys, usually mid-teens, under the guise of education and moral cultivation. But the reality was far more complex. These relationships blended politics, mentorship, affection, and at times coercion. The older man, powerful and learned, was the Erastes, the lover and mentor. The youth, the Iromenos, the beloved student. Borrowed from Greece, this structure became Rome's own rite of passage for aspiring young men. To be chosen by an elder was to be noticed, elevated, and marked for greatness, no matter the cost. For the youth, proximity to power could transform destiny. To be seen at a governor's side meant entry into politics, patronage, and wealth. These relationships were less about emotion than opportunity. Many historians describe them as contracts of desire, exchanges where affection mingled with ambition. The Roman elite viewed them as natural, expressions of hierarchy and mentorship. What began as guidance often blurred into possession, for in a society where everything had a price, even affection could be bought, borrowed, or commanded. In Rome, love was never private. Even intimacy became politics. Powerful men used lovers to gain leverage, forge alliances, or humiliate rivals. Senators whispered about who slept with whom, not out of moral outrage, but political calculation. In this world, the bedchamber was an extension of the Senate, and pleasure a form of strategy. Desire was both a weapon and a weakness, capable of destroying reputations or propelling men into the emperor's inner circle. No one embodied Rome's extremes more than its emperors, men who ruled not just armies but appetites. Among them, none shocked the world quite like Nero. His rule blurred the line between theatre and tyranny. Where others hid their pleasures behind curtains, Nero built them into public spectacle. To his mind, the emperor was both god and actor, free to rewrite morality as he pleased. And his most infamous performance came not on stage, but at the altar. In one of the most bizarre acts in imperial history, Nero staged a full wedding ceremony, not with a woman, but with his freedman, Pythagoras. Yet what stunned Rome most wasn't the union itself, but Nero's role within it. Draped in a bridal veil, he walked the aisle as the bride. Before witnesses and priests, the emperor of Rome submitted himself to another man. The crowd watched in uneasy silence, unsure whether to applaud or tremble. This performance shattered the code of dominance on which Rome's identity stood. Soon after, Nero found another obsession, a delicate youthful boy named Sporus. Unlike Pythagoras, Sporus was still in his teens, barely a man, yet destined to play the role of an empress. Nero's desire to mold him into the image of a woman led to one of history's most disturbing acts. To preserve the illusion, Nero ordered the boy's castration. It was a brutal attempt to erase nature itself, to sculpt flesh into fantasy. The surgery was cruel, irreversible, and performed in the name of imperial vanity. After the operation, Nero staged another wedding, this time with Sporus as his bride. Draped in silks and jewels, the boy was paraded before the empire as a living symbol of the emperor's power to redefine reality. Nero called him by a woman's name, gave him attendance, and treated him as the Empress of Rome. The public was horrified, yet none dared protest. The empire had learned to applaud what it feared. Beneath the gold and ceremony was a tragedy, an innocent youth reduced to an ornament of imperial madness. Nero's actions were extreme, yet they revealed something deeply Roman, the belief that power could shape truth. Desire was not judged by morality, but by might. If an emperor wished to call a boy his wife, then Rome would kneel and pretend to believe it. The empire's moral compass turned not toward justice, but toward the throne. For men like Sporus, survival meant submission. The empire's most intimate tragedies unfolded behind marble doors, gilded with silence. In time, Nero's empire collapsed beneath its own weight. But for Sporus, the scars endured. After Nero's death, the boy, still trapped in the identity forced upon him, was passed between powerful men who saw him as a trophy of the fallen emperor. His story became legend, a haunting symbol of power's ability to consume innocence. Ancient chroniclers described him as beautiful, silent, and broken, a living echo of Rome's cruelty dressed in silk. Not all imperial loves were built on cruelty. A generation later, Emperor Hadrian's devotion to the young Antinous became one of history's most enduring romances. Unlike Nero's madness, Hadrian's affection carried the weight of genuine grief. The boy from Bithynia accompanied him on campaigns, sharing his table, his counsel, and his heart. When Antinous drowned mysteriously in the Nile, the emperor's world shattered. He immortalized his lover not with silence but with marble and divinity. Cities, temples, and statues rose in the youth's image, a mortal transformed into a god. Hadrian's grief became empire-wide devotion. Across Rome, coins bore Antinous' face, temples were dedicated in his honor, and poets declared his soul divine. This was not simply mourning, it was the creation of myth. Antinous became the eternal youth, symbol of love that defied death and time. Hadrian transformed personal sorrow into state religion, proving that even in loss, power could rewrite destiny. But for every Hadrian there was a Tiberius. In his later years, Emperor Tiberius withdrew to the island of Capri, a sun-soaked paradise that hid a reputation of unspeakable acts. Ancient sources paint a ghastly picture. Young boys taken from noble families under the guise of education, used and discarded in his private villa. Whether propaganda or truth, the stories of Capri reflect how absolute power corrupted absolutely. Even pleasure became tyranny. Rome never spoke openly of these things. The Senate recorded victories, not violence. Temples celebrated virtue, not victims. Yet beneath the monuments and mosaics lay stories of countless youths, mentored, loved, or used by those they trusted. Their names were erased, their voices lost to time. But through the cracks of history, we catch their echoes, a warning that civilization is not measured by its architecture, but by its humanity. To understand Rome is to see how love and power intertwined until they were indistinguishable. Emperors believed their desire was divine right. What was taken by force became ritual. What was forced into silence became legend. In this world, affection was measured by how many witnessed it, not how deeply it was felt. Love was a spectacle, and to deny the emperor's passion was to invite death. Modern audiences often see these stories as shocking or deviant, but for Rome, they were expressions of a world where identity was defined by dominance, not gender. Understanding that world requires humility and horror in equal measure. Recognizing that great civilizations can create art and atrocity with the same hands. The Romans left behind architecture that still stands, but they also left a legacy of silenced souls that whisper through history's corridors. From Nero's bizarre weddings to Hadrian's divine mourning, Rome's stories of love and desire reveal a truth that echoes through time, that passion without restraint can become power's most dangerous mirror. Every empire believes its indulgence will last forever. But the same fires that warm the heart can burn the foundations of civilization. In the end, Rome's greatest weakness wasn't its enemies. It was the illusion that its gods approved of everything its rulers desired. When the empire finally fell, the temples of Antinous crumbled, Nero's palaces turned to ash, and the sea reclaimed Capri's secrets. Yet the stories remain. Fragments of beauty, cruelty, and longing woven into stone. Rome's forbidden loves remind us that the pursuit of pleasure, when bound to power, becomes history's darkest art. Love in the hands of emperors was never free. It was empire itself.